Today, I'm going to show you how to take your damage from this to this, using just 3 easy steps: Flask, Frost, and Terra Magica. By following this setup, you can boost your damage up to 290%, melting bosses with ease. We're covering 2 builds, one that is perfect for early game and new players, and another optimized for mid to late game veterans looking to maximize their damage output. We are taking a deep dive into one of Elden Ring's most iconic and powerful weapons, the Dark Moon Greatsword. Let us explore why this weapon is a must-have for both new and experienced players. The Dark Moon Greatsword is an excellent choice for both mid and late game. The sword can be obtained relatively early by completing Ranni's questline, making it accessible to new or returning players before even accessing mid-game areas or the DLC. The weapon has B scaling in intelligence. The intelligence scaling is very forgiving. At 40 intelligence, the damage output is already impressive. At 60 intelligence, the damage is only increased by 12%. At 80 intelligence, it only goes up by a mere 6%. This means you don't have to max out your intelligence to make the most out of this weapon, making it friendly for lower levels and fresh starts. You can easily run this build effectively on a level 70 character. Speaking of the skill of the weapon, it is called Moonlight's Greatsword. The Moonlight Greatsword skill costs 32 FP and lasts for 1 minute. It enhances the sword by adding 65 magic damage and inflicting frostbite. When the skill is active, you can use charged heavy attacks to fire magic projectiles. The projectiles have a massive range. It is perfect for hitting enemies safely from a distance. These projectiles are also chargeable, with the charged heavy dealing 26% more damage but requiring a bit more casting time. The damage of it scales with your weapon's level and intelligence, so for maximum effect, you will want to max the weapon and the intelligence stat. For maximizing the Moonlight Greatsword skill, certain buffs and equipment combinations are key. The 2 armors that boost the projectile damage are Rajir set and the Rakshasa set. In the Carrion Sovereignty video, which you can check later, I highly recommend. People kept saying Rajir set has higher damage. It does not. Rakshasa is simply better with higher resistances, so you are not squishy. Through the testing, the following talismans will work with this skill: Godfrey's Icon, Shot of Alexander, Magic Scorpion Charm. Talismans like Rellana's Cameo, the 2-handed talisman, Axe Talisman, Rotten Wind Sword Insignia, and Graven Mask Talisman do not affect this skill, so avoid using these or spamming them in the comments, lol. Using the Jellyfish Shield provides a 12% boost to the skill's damage, but it can be very annoying to use mid-combat. Remember, easy damage is always better damage. A greater alternative is to offhand the staff to use the spell Terra Magica, which boosts the damage by 22%. A higher and easier damage buff to use, and since the damage is the same with 1 or 2 hands, you can offhand the staff at all times. When combining all possible buffs and debuffs, the Dark Moon Greatsword can reach an impressive 289%. It can be boosted up to 415% with just using Howl of Shibriri and Golden Vow, which are not that hard to use. The builds we will cover will be for early game and late game, with both taking into consideration damage, character level, and the accessible gear. I highly recommend watching both builds, since the second one is a polished version of the first one, and I'll be going through it with less details than the first one. Starting with build number 1. This build is tailored for early game to mid game. It is designed to be easy to use while still dealing significant damage. Grab the Dark Moon Greatsword, which can be obtained by finishing Ranni's questline, and max it to +10 for high projectile damage. You can use the Astrologer's Staff to cast sorceries. It is the easiest one to get and can be purchased from the merchant in Lernia. For the armor, go for Rajir set, which offers around 8% damage to magic and can be obtained very early on. If you are not comfortable with its low resistances, use the Carrion Knight set, which offers solid resistances and good drip. For the talismans, use Shard of Alexander, a free boost to the skill damage by 15%. I hope you commit to Alexander's quest to get this talisman. It is very useful for almost every build. Use Godfrey's Icon for a 15% boost to charge attacks. Depending on the boss and their pace, charge the skill of the weapon to benefit from this buff. Use the magic scorpion charm to raise the skill's damage by 12%. Ignore its drawback and pretend it doesn't exist. If you are locked out of this talisman, use a utility talisman like Radagon's icon to cast faster, or a defense talisman depending on the boss. For the final talisman, go for the ritual sword talisman for a 10% damage boost at full HP. The sword allows for a safe playstyle which you can exploit to easily benefit from this talisman. If you lose this buff, it's not the end of the world, it's just a 10% damage boost. For the physic, use the magic shrouding crack tier for a 20% damage increase. Free easy damage that will last for 3 minutes. For the second tier, use the opaline heart tier to increase all damage negation types by 15% for 3 minutes. This helps to offset the magic scorpion charm debuff. For the spells, use Terra Magica to increase damage by 22%, which will last for 30 seconds. And depending on your playstyle, you can open up the fight with a Zamor's Ice Storm to proc Frostbite on a boss, which will make them take 20% more damage. Or you can use Freezing Pots to proc Frostbite faster and safer. For the stat distribution of a level 77 character, 40 Vigor, decent for mid-game, 15 Mind to be able to use the skill for 3 minutes before needing a refill, 17 Endurance to be able to medium roll with the current loadout, 16 Strength to meet the minimum requirement of the weapon, 11 Dex to meet the minimum requirement of the weapon as well, and 38 Intelligence, and you can still do a decent damage, just level it up when you can for more damage. For a slightly higher level character, level up Vigor to 50 and Intelligence to 60. This build is for mid to late game players looking to maximize damage while maintaining a reasonably easy to use loadout. Grab the Dark Moon Greatsword and max it to plus 10 for high projectile damage. Pair it with the Azur's Glintstone Staff, which gives you 40 virtual dexterity to cast faster. For the armor, go for the Rakshasa set, which offers 8% overall damage. If you are not comfortable with its low resistances, use a tankier armor to survive more. For the talismans, use Shard of Alexander, a free boost to the skill damage by 15%. Use Godfrey's icon for a 15% to charge attacks. Use the magic scorpion charm to raise the skill's damage by 12%. And for the final talisman slot, go for the opposite of the first build, the red feathered branch sword. It offers a 20% damage boost when HP is low. The talisman fits in perfectly with the aggressive playstyle since our health will be ticking down with a squishier armor. The trade-off is well worth it, monstrous amounts of damage. For the physic, use the magic shrouding crack tier for a 20% damage increase. For the second tier, use the blood-sucking crack tier to boost damage by 20% for 3 minutes. A very aggressive choice that will constantly take your health down for more damage. If you do not like it, you can use the deflection tier. It can work well with this build if you're willing to give it a try. For the spells, use Terra Magica to increase damage by 22%. It can easily be reapplied since you're offhanded the staff, and either debuff the boss by using Zamor's Ice to proc Frostbite or Freezing Pots to make them take 20% more damage. If you feel freaky and want more damage, you can level up Fate to 33 and use Golden Vow and Howl of Shabriri before every fight for even higher damage. For the stat distribution of a level 170 character, 60 Vigor, decent to meet the Vigor check, 20 Mind to be able to use the skill for 4 minutes before needing a refill, 25 Endurance to be able to medium roll with the loadout, 16 Strength to meet the minimum requirement, 11 Dex to meet the minimum requirement as well, and 99 Intelligence, maximum intelligence for maximum damage. This makes it easy if you're a lower level, just lower this stat. The Dark Moon Greatsword is a powerful weapon in Elden Ring that can suit both early game and late game playstyles. Whether you're just starting or pushing into the DLC content, this weapon's unique blend of magic and amazing skill makes it a standout choice. Try these builds out and let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to see my build on the best DLC weapon, Euphoria, check out this video.